Man is a synthesis of the entire universe, which means the whole universe enters man through the senses. But here the problem arises. Being the man temple of God, therefore bearer of the absolute, passion of the absolute, man receives in himself the outer world, creation, creatures, facts, and immediately man feels a conflict. The things of the outer world are not absolute. Certainly are not the absolute that man carries in his thought and that he is hungry. Man is characterized by this. Man is passion, hunger for the absolute. And when this passion of absolute of the man comes into contact with what is not absolute, the thing is no longer bearable by man. Man feels the problem, he needs a justification, he needs to question and feel the answer. Why do things change? Why are all things subject to death? It is this passion of the absolute, it is this God that man carries within himself that makes him question. The man needs an answer. And here, in the face of this problem, every man begins to qualify. We have men who face what is not absolute with the attempt to transform into absolute what is not absolute. It is fatigue, it is striving, it is the study of all men, trying to do absolute what absolute is not. All human fatigue and all human conflicts have this deep root. Man does not accept change. Man does not accept that the creatures and things of the world change, and he tends to make them eternal, absolute, stable. Creation is every work of God that comes to man independently of man, therefore it is imposed. Man suffers it, but he suffers something that he cannot digest, that he cannot assimilate, he cannot understand. Because creation and creatures are not absolute, and man is passion of the absolute, and then he commits uselessly in an effort to try to do absolute what the absolute is not. Here's the man who works. The soul of all human labor and all human endeavor is to try to make absolute what absolute is not. And then we have a second answer from man, and the second answer from man is not to transform into absolute what the absolute is not, it is to seek what the absolute is. And here's the man who's trying to find out. So the first man who lives to transform into absolute what is not absolute certainly goes to failure. All human labor and human fatigue go to failure. For no man can transform into absolute that which is not absolute, if only because there is death. This is not the solution to the problem. Salvation is in understanding. Then salvation is here. Salvation is in the man who seeks to understand what is the absolute. There are men who tend to do. Also, in the field of the apostolate, it is always a desire to do the things of the outside world so that they are absolute. And instead there are men who tend to try to understand what the absolute is, who God is. Everything depends on having God present or not having God present. God, creator of all things, is the being that no man can ignore. Certainly man is not the creator of things. Man is passion of the absolute, so he cannot bear that which is not absolute. Therefore every time that man does not take into account God, he is immediately led to transform that which is not absolute into absolute, and to want the absolute creature, immutable as God, puts the creature in the place of God. We have said that this is the soul of all man's problems and all his work. If instead man takes into account God, all the signs that come to man from creation are a warning. Man receives them as an invitation to deepen the knowledge of the Absolute One that he cannot ignore.